From your experience, what are the consequences of reacting too slowly?
Well, in supply chain, so the consequence of acting too slowly. Um, let's say there's a disruptive event in the supply chain, right? It's a constrained commodity in the world. You and everybody's dashed to the spot market, and you get there a week late. Well, you're not going to,
Right.
first of all, you're not going to get it, right? So you have, which, something that was a disruption has now in the supply chain has now turned into a business disruption for you. You can't get the material you need. So that's your catastrophic outcome. Let's say you're a little bit faster than that and you get to the marketplace, but the whole world, you get there the same time everybody else, market pricing just shot up, right? It's now that commodity we're going to buy is now 10 times the cost. Financial impact. So maybe you could get it, but you've got a tremendous financial impact, oftentimes enough to negate any margin that you may have on a product, right? So obviously financial impact to the company. Those are the first like two tactical. I mean, the buckets that are obvious. The part that's less obvious and is actually the worst is that the supply chain's interconnected. So when there's a disruption at some point, it starts getting tangled up really fast. It's like a ball of string, right? And each layer, it touches something else, and then that can't get that what they need, and then this, you can't get the ship out, or you can't get, and it starts becoming tangled and more tangled, and this ball of string gets bigger and bigger and more tangled. And then you might see a collapse. You can get to the point where you might collapse an entire product line. You might shut down an entire customer, right? And oh, by the way, the resources to untangle that really big ball of string, right? Think of it as like a supply chain gridlock. The resources are incredible. Then you've got, you're throwing armies of people at it. You're having now to put together project plans, and you've got different work streams involved. And it's taking you months. And while you're working on that for months, you're not responding to other problems. You're not working on your strategic projects, right? And so it has this even bigger strategic impact to your company. And so the reality, sometimes people say, well, I don't have resources with this because I don't have the resources to address it, to be fast. It's like, no, you don't have the resources not to be fast, right? That's where you'll get to resource strain. And that's where you see these, you'll see the big press releases of, companies who have massive product launches when they fail to make the launch, or the demand far exceeds what they expect. And there's just real impact on company financials. So, I always say, no, you don't have time not to be fast. Like, go now.
And why do you think nowadays you must react even faster than ever?
Well, so I'd start with just sheer volume. If you look at the data, and we had plotted the data over a series of years, so supply chain disruption has been increasing. As the world became more interconnected, supply chains became more interconnected, globalization. You started to see increased volume of disruptions. Okay. Right. And an increased volume in increasingly complex supply chains that are global. They're not regional, or they're not local, and they're global, and they're 15 layers deep. So you see this volume increase. A lot of people associate that time frame with the pandemic, but if you actually look at the 4 years prior to the pandemic, supply chain risk was increasing, and events were increasing at a pretty rapid clip before the pandemic. You saw a big spike, came back down, but it didn't come back down to the beginning. It came back down to the curve where it was before and has continued to go up. So if you think about today versus 4 years before the pandemic, supply chain disruptions running about 10 to 12 times the rate it was earlier. So sheer volume tells you that why now? Why do you have to do something? Unless you've been gifted with, 10 times the number of employees that you had previously, which most supply chain leaders have not been, right? You aren't physically going to have the resources. So if you don't have the resources to address it, you haven't fixed your process, you haven't automated it and put all those components in, then you've got yourself in a quagmire, right? And it's hard to get out. And really, technology is the only way out of that quagmire.
Interesting. I think it's a very accurate description of all those, crazy things that we've gone through over the last 5 years. I would say. I always say, disruptions. They always have disruptions. Like floods, and it could be a natural disasters, or even just strike, whatever. But the volume and the strength of the last couple of years, they really emphasize what disruption is. And I think supply chains should be more adaptive, and actually to understand that disruption is the new normal. So it's not going to go away. It's going to keep. I think that we're going to keep seeing in the near future, in the next couple of years, more and more disruptions. And just it's all about management, because as you say, if you don't have enough resources to manage and address all those catastrophes easily, it's very, very challenging. And it's all about right management and right risk management.